What up, Hard Yarns? We started with low energy and we finished strong. We must have had carbs before the potty.
Yes.
Sugar crash.
Oh, yeah.
Love that sugar crash.
Very good episode. I think a lot of people are going to get a lot out of this episode, especially the people trying to learn how to run and go distance and stuff.
Get healthy and trying to find some enjoyment back in their training.
It's not just about the athletic performance. It's
Yeah,
all
this
about
is your
general
average-
health and
your average Joe basically today,
which is
good.
great.
Some key tips for them.
But what did we touch on?
So we touched on, zone 2 training for the everyday person. So how you can incorporate zones. What is zone 2? How do you incorporate it? How to make it more enjoyable.
Basically means we're not going to be fat fucks anymore.
We talked about not trying to out-train poor nutrition. So, having poor nutrition, don't go to a gym to lose weight. It's a bad idea. Fix your nutrition first, and then that complements, the gym complements that. We talked a bit about running technique at the end. We talked a bit about vitamins and minerals. If you're a vegan, what can you take? What are you missing out on?
Apart from good times and flavour.
And it was just good,
and the guys want to put size on. Creatine, take it. We talked about a few other things as well.
And just a massive thanks to all the Patreons still. So we haven't got any new ones this week, but a big shout out to all those that are still Patreons. We dropped 2. I think it's because there's a problem with Patreon payments. So if you are a Patreon, jump on, check it out, make sure it's all functioning.
And the people are going to start getting their merch.
Merch will be coming
so
after.
It's starting to come through.
And we've just bought a switcher for the potty with our first payment from Patreon. So thank you so much, guys. You'll start seeing the video quality go up in the next few weeks
and you'll be able to watch it every week on Spotify,
which
is going to be incredible.
It's already on YouTube as well. But here we go. Thanks. We got Corey Green coming up with sport, nutrition, and just being a healthy cunt.
Let's get hard.
Let's get hard.
Wow.
Rolling. We're live. What I do like is the cleverness of you, Corey.
Which is
branding.
Oh mate, you gotta look professional.
Now that you know that we're doing good films and good videos and good content
on YouTube, you gotta represent the brand. Hence why you've got that nice Hard Yarns podcasting right behind you.
Yeah, it's very good. So, how's things, mate? It's been how long has it been since you've been on? Must be
6 months. I reckon.
Marathon.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
Yeah, because
me and Chris came on to talk about a few things.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, at the start of the year, I think, or late last year. Late last year. Yeah, awesome. How's things?
What an energetic start, eh, boys?
Yeah, how's the?
Let's get excited. We're talking all things health and fitness.
How's business going first?
Yeah, do good. Yeah, we're really good. In a very good spot considering obviously the last couple of years. So the business is continuing to grow. We just had a second level put in. Just had a mezzanine put in with like a little recovery area. Yeah, so staff are flying. Like I've got the best team around me, which is why we are successful. Because one thing I've learned in business is you just need really good people around you. Knowledges and systems you can learn, but finding the right people is the key to success.
Yeah, 100%.
If people don't give a fuck about your business, like
the right vibe around the room as well, it gets everyone else feeling better.
Culture, man, it's a word thrown around a lot. But the more you learn about it, the more you read about it, it's trying to find the right people to do the right job and. Where we all click and it's like a family for us, so it's really good.
Do you guys do social events?
Not super often. We're all pretty busy, but we definitely try and hang out where we can.
Yeah, because I was just thinking, Frank from Body Fit West Perth, he gets me in once every 3 months to do quizzes or comedy or drama or whatever.
That's cool.
They get like 90 members showing up, man.
Really?
Yeah.
We should do one for AI.
I was going to say.
Actually, yeah, because your members.
Your business card just
yeah. Well, it just clicked when you're talking about culture. I'm like, you should get people together, and I'm like. I don't want to hang out with people that I just meet at the gym, but like F45 is a full culture, the Body Fit, so I'm assuming your gym's no different.
Yeah, of course. If not better,
You've actually been having you've got the AFL players training with you guys in off season.
Yeah,
and stuff.
So it's been a really good couple of years for us, and those guys are coming in because they're getting results. So I'm not going to talk about West Coast because I'm very angry. West Coast.
Well, you are not associated with them
for multiple reasons. I'm not associated with them, so I can't talk about them. But so I'm not going to go down there.
So who have you got? Freo boys in?
Couple. Obviously, we had the guys like Heath Chappie. He came into the off season. He's a West Perth boy.
Yeah.
He brought Youngie in, but Youngie was just coming to sort of recover in the sauna and that. And Westy obviously is me for 5-6 years.
Who after you training with you guys and obviously natural talent as well, but like he came in, didn't he come second in the 2K or the 5K?
Well, for the first years he came second, but his strength data is where he's impressive. Like
he's Who are we talking about here? West?
Connor West, yeah.
Goes into the club first year, goes and breaks all their records for their leg strength. And
really?
When I say leg strength, they're testing something for the first time, and he's the number one at it for single leg strength. He's obviously been doing that for a long time with me.
Yeah.
So. But he's been
nothing to him though.
But I know. But he puts 125 kilos on his shoulders and does a split squat.
Yeah, it's strength.
That's crazy.
That just sounds like me going for a fucking drink.
But he's been injured 3 times since being there.
Yeah,
he wasn't injured in 5 years of waffle footy. So there's something going on there, and it needs to change.
So do you think actually, without casting stones at West Coast, do you think maybe it might not even be West Coast? He's been training on the hard ground.
I think there's multiple factors. Obviously, there's a slightly step up in intensity
games
of footy. But even then, like, we get GPS at waffle level, and we're running at like 145 meters per minute for a game. They're very similar. They might be running a tiny bit longer, but it's not vastly different. People think there's a big jump. It's actually not as big as you think when you actually look at all the numbers. So I
guess just the skill and the speed and the reaction time.
Bigger bodies as well. But
but he's doing it at training as well. Hey, he's not doing it in games.
Yeah, he did one in a game. I think he did something in a game not long ago. But obviously had Langers come through for the off season, and Darling came through while he could. Yeah, and it was a good season. So a good off season for us. So.
Yeah, sick.
So right.
But we've actually got some interesting questions that we are very interested in.
Yes.
And specifically, so me and you were talking before about, it was just a year ago that I finished the 80 that you said I wouldn't finish. I
didn't say you wouldn't finish.
You doubted.
I said you're going to crawl across the line.
Yes.
And you basically did.
But and you were right though. It was never ever going to be my will, determination, and like whether I'd have enough energy. It'd be my mechanical failures.
Mechanical stress.
Yeah,
that would be the issue. I feel like we've just missed a hell big talking point, man.
Oh no, what?
Like Corey was training Jack Darling when he could.
Oh,
and we've just glossed over.
The
whole missing a preseason coming back.
Yeah, well, we could do that.
When I say training, so like Westy and Langers, I'm writing their programs. So I'm actually writing everything for them to do in the off-season. Jack Darling's obviously got a club program, which he comes and does. And if he needs help, then I'll advise, and I have to advise him on a few things. But yeah, it was...
What's your opinion on the club programs? Are you allowed to say, or will you put yourself out of a job?
That's why I moved on.
Well, I don't need the job, so it's not like I'm worried about that. Yep. It's, I look at how things are done, and I think... some things need to change there. I'm not going to go into the specifics, but overall...
Well, isn't that at most AFL clubs? It's so entrenched that they don't want to, or they're afraid to change?
Well,
this is what Chris was sort of talking about last time, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, Chris touched on it. Like, it's definitely when people have been there a long time, there's... I think everyone has an expiry date on their job to some degree. Like, I think as long as you continue to evolve and... but I don't know what that time frame is. But they've had a performance manager there for 30 years, which is the longest in the AFL.
Is that something you'd be looking to do or want to do, or you find with your business?
I honestly don't know. I don't know if until I get to that moment, if that even came about. But for me, it's I think there's... I'm not going to go into it, but I think things need to change a little bit down there.
Could your business, an opportunity like that comes up, could your business self-run?
It definitely could. Like, we're in the process now of putting those systems in place where, Bryce is a legend of a bloke. He's been with me for 6.5 years.
Well, like, knows what he's talking about.
So he'll be stepping up into more of a managerial role in the near future. So if something like that does happen, but it's more for him to help share the load because we are getting so busy. Yeah. And there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the background that people don't see that takes up a lot of time. And when you're trying to write individual plans for so many people, like we've got 100 youth athletes plus all the other athletes that we deal with at West Perth and that. It takes a lot of time writing programs. So
the youth athlete program's huge, hey?
Yeah, it's massive.
For developing the future.
Yeah. Our vision is educate and empower and inspire the next generation of youth athletes as they persevere for their goals and on a global scale. So for us, it's about just educating. Our program is about to be redesigned and elevated to another level in the near future as well, which is pretty exciting stuff.
So the injuries to Connor West, what do you put it down to?
I know you're pushing. I've got to be careful here, but I definitely think there's some programming elements that need to change.
Yeah. Is it because there's overwork? Surely not in this day and age. They're not being overworked.
Because it's not just Connor West. There's the biggest injury list in a pre-season that I think I've ever seen.
And look, that's just...
But Freo used to be like that.
Yeah, let's just say the West Coast Eagles have been a good team for a long time. They haven't been in this sort of position in my time that I know.
I don't think any club's ever been in this position where they've had injury and COVID and all these situations.
But I think Essendon in the late 2000s had a big issue with that. They had 14 hamstrings one season or something like that. Something crazy.
Yeah.
And for us, at Waffle, we've gone through a full pre-season with 15 more blokes, with like nowhere near as much staff, with 0 soft tissue injuries.
Yeah.
Which is like crazy to even think about for us.
So that's suggesting that whatever your strength program is pretty good.
Well, I think there's elements to it.
If you can compare all the other testing and it's comparable, then yes.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you want to compare apples with apples, not apples with oranges. But I don't know how much. I mean, I get a pretty good idea. They do West Coast do weights 3 times a week, and they'll run 3 times a week. This is obviously in pre-season.
Yeah.
In 2006, West Coast were doing half weights once like a week. So
yeah. How good. How good.
Classic.
But yeah, going back to your point about your ultra. Yeah, like obviously, how'd you go with it? Obviously, you finished it,
we sort of touched on it last time, but the recovery was pretty as a lot harder than I anticipated in regards to not feeling normal and then going for a run like 3 or 4 weeks later, going fuck, my knees and hips and ankles are still cooked.
Few people listening, that's like just how we feel going for a run.
Just
all the time.
Well, I do have I've got a lot of soreness all the time anyway, and which you've often told me can be sorted through training and nutrition and fucking stretching, all the
just
balance,
movement.
Yeah, exactly. But so now I've signed up for 100 kilometers with Steve Potente, another past player.
Yeah, another West Perth player.
And he was like, "No, we'll just do 50 Ks," and I was like, "Nah,
I've done 80.
I've done 80. 50 is like a step back."
So isn't the human nature so funny? Like you just want to continue to evolve and just push things to boundaries and
until you realise that you should just be happy.
Yeah,
I've got no desire
to do it.
Oh man, they invented cars for a reason.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. And I was speaking to Brian Shields from Green Reapers yesterday about this, and I think there's this thing in your head that just when you've been ultra competitive for so long, you're looking for the next thing to challenge yourself. And for me, I went to coaching at Wanneroo for a bit, and I didn't really rate that. And then the business is going well, but it's like I've done that now. I want to do something else. I'm always trying to find something else that's harder. Yeah. And I think that's just something in your brain. Once you've done something ultra competitive and hard and challenging, you want to find the next challenge.
Yeah. Let's make the next challenge getting the podcast.
Yeah, well, that's that's exactly what has happened. That's why my business is basically I've sort of almost half pushed that to the side. I feel like I did well there. I've got that going. Yeah. Now this is my next challenge.
Yeah. It'll be a challenge. 100 Ks will be a challenge, that's for sure.
100 Ks, 25 kilometre loop in November.
So you just got to do the same thing 4 times.
Yeah.
So that's the thing with loops. Loops are mentally.
That's where I think the mentally. So I'm almost excited by the challenge of doing ultra down at Margaret River again. Yeah. Because it's actually kind of cool. It's start to finish, 80 kilometers.
They're the best type.
It's like a travel. Yeah. You can't finish till you get there. Whereas I think the mental aspect of a 25 kilometer loop will be fucking.
Well, I did the ultra at 2 o'clock in the morning down in Busso. So you run. It's a 50K ultra on the beach.
Yep.
So you basically run from Dunsborough to the Busselton Jetty. Turn around. So Busselton to the Dunsborough Jetty.
Yep.
No, vice versa.
Yeah.
And then come back. So it's 25 Ks up.
On soft sand?
It's mainly hard, and there's probably about, I'd say, 10 Ks over the 50 Ks is going to be on soft sand.
That's disgusting.
Yeah.
I hate even running 50 metres on soft sand.
It was a good day. Like, I dragged a mate down. Shout out to AJ Smith from his business down there.
Yeah.
Smith's Fitness. I dragged him into it. I said, I'm doing an ultra down near your way. Do you want to come? It's 2 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday morning.
Why did they start so early? Because of the temperature?
Nah, it's a full moon. So when the full moon rises over the water, it's a beautiful.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. But there's water crossings as well. So like you're running through, and at one point I'm waist deep in water.
Yeah.
What? How's Tinia going, man?
Yeah. So I did. Fuck. My whole goal was to try and negative split. So obviously you see people run out and they're going out pretty quick. And I'm not sure if they've done ultras before. And some are doing a 25K loop. Some are just going to the jetty and stopping. So you don't know who's doing what. But yeah, so I think I averaged like 6 minutes 15 per K going there. And then I wanted to increase pace coming back, which I ended up coming back at like 550s or 555s or something. Good. But like you said in the ultra, like it wasn't the cardiovascular fitness that was getting me. My quads and my legs in that last 5Ks, like just pounding on the sand.
Mine was my hips.
The pain.
And that can lead us into our first topic because, actually, quickly, how do I best train for like 100 kilometers? Because I didn't train last time, and Stevie Potente is not going to do it without training. He wants to train. He wants to do it because I noticed hips were a huge fucking issue. Hips, joints, all the joints.
Yeah, look, I mean, there's so many ways to skin this cat, and for me, obviously, part of it's going to be the zone 2, which we'll talk about. And zone two is one of those things where once you get an athlete to do it, they find it hard because it's very slow.
Well, explain zone 2 running then.
Yeah, so look, if you're going to define zone 2, normally it's between like 60 and 70% of your maximum heart rate. Now, fitter people, it can be up to sort of 78 to 80% of your maximum heart rate. So you can do the math on that quite simply. Like if it's 200, whatever the math out worked to be.
Is it 220 take your age still?
That's the ballpark figure. Yeah. You can obviously do testing to figure out. You obviously do like a max test, a VO2 max test to figure that out. But so in a lab, if you wanted to do like what zone 2 is in a lab, you would go in and they'll put a gas mask on there. They'll measure oxygen and carbon dioxide expiration. And
you run or you bike or
usually bike because it's a lot easier with a mask on.
Yep.
Then you can do like lactate. So we'll talk about lactate a little bit, but for the average person listening, like zone 2, the easiest way to do it is it should be a run where you can hold a conversation, but it's not like me and you guys are sitting here talking now, but like there's it's kind of hard to hold a conversation, but you can still talk. You can
still do it.
You can still talk. And like for me, like it's no higher than 145 heart rate. So I want to be sitting between sort of 135 and 145 heart rate. And, you know, a lot of things affect heart rate though. So a lot of people don't understand, like if I say to my athlete, go to a zone 2, there's hills in the run. So they'll spike. So they'll run up the hill at the same pace. The heart rate might get to 165. And once you tip that point of like you're now out of zone 2 into a zone 3 and sometimes into a zone 4, you've stopped the zone 2 run at that point. Okay. So you're now changing. All right.
So does that mean slow up the hill or walk?
Yeah, so slow your pace. Sometimes you need to walk up the hill depending how steep the hill is.
Yep.
So a lot of athletes will run up a hill at the same pace because I'm doing 545s. I'll just keep doing them up the hill, but it could be a longer hill. By the top, you might be at 85, 90% of your max heart rate if you're not super fit. And then you start to change the signaling pathways in. So now you start switching into carbohydrate metabolism, and then you start to change the effect of the session, right? So, and if it's a hot day, the hardest thing for people is when it's a hot day. That's the hardest thing. So if I know my heart rate's only 145 tops, and I can hold, say, 5-minute pace for that heart rate, I'll go out and do that all day on a flat course, and it's cool. But all of a sudden, if it's a 30-degree day, I'm running at 5-minute pace. My heart rate's now 155, 160 because of heat stress. So now you've got to significantly slow your pace to stay within the zone.
So there's a few different factors. So monitoring it as you're going is probably the best way to do it on a watch or whatever.
Yeah, so I'll have a non-negotiable with my athletes who want to train for do like, triathlons or marathons or whatever they're doing, is that you need to have a heart rate monitor, like chest strap, and you need to have a watch. So wrist heart rate is nowhere near effective.
And why zone 2? What's the benefits and what does it do?
Yeah, so
it's cheaper than an all-day ticket. It doesn't matter what zones you're in.
Yeah, and that's a good question. So for us, zone 2 develops your mitochondria, and we've all done sort of human biology in like year 11 and 12. But you want to try and develop more mitochondria because that's where you oxidize energy. So that's where fat oxidation occurs, and this is like building the size of your tank. So when people refer to your tank, you want to develop more of those. So zone 2 is designed to increase the number of mitochondria, build like capillary density, so you're getting a lot more oxygen around.
Is this scientifically proven? I didn't realize you could increase the amount of mitochondria
100%, yes, you can.
How does that work? Your DNA makes
more
mitochondria?
Epigenetics and DNA, messenger RNA, like we're not going to go into the full science. And look, I'll be sitting here and lying to say to you that I understand like all the chemical processes going on.
Yep.
But I forwarded you some articles this morning for reference. But the developing the size and number. So the simplest way for people listening is that you want to increase the amount of them by doing zone 2. And I think we touched this before that high intensity exercise is a way to tune the engine. So now you're making them more efficient. So you want to try and polarize your training. So you want to spend a lot of your time doing zone 2, like 70%, and then you can do 30% of like more VO2 max. So now you're doing like 4-minute efforts. Like you're pushing hard for 4 minutes to develop your VO2 max with like a 4-minute recovery, and you can repeat those processes to build. So if everyone runs with a watch, it'll tell you what your VO2 max is. It might be like 53 milligrams per kilogram body weight.
How do they work it out on watch? Because I did it when I was at uni. We did it in the lab with your fucking mask and blood lactate thresholds. Yeah. So how does a watch figure that out?
So watch figures it out through heart rate, pace, your age, because you're putting all your details into it, right? You're putting your height, your weight, your age, your sex, all those things.
It's very general.
Yeah, and it gives you very like a predicted sort of based on all the normative data we have over the years, right?
Wolfies would be wrong because he wouldn't put his age in.
Yeah.
Because obviously as you age, it's going to decline, right? Because you start to lose muscle mass as you age. So muscle mass affects it. So if you have a larger muscle mass, you're generally going to have a higher VO2 max.
And VO2 max for people listening is the amount of volume of oxygen you can hold in your lungs.
The maximum amount of oxygen you consume in a minute relative to your body weight. So obviously, if you want to consume more to be fitter. But zone 2 training is really about getting back to being more efficient. So doing things more efficiently. So if like we do a test, and anyone listening can do this, you can go out and do like a maximal aerobic function test. Depending on your fitness, you can do like a 3, 5, or 8K run, where you might build up to that particular heart rate. So for me, I need to build up to like a 147 heart rate in a warm-up slowly. And then I hold that 147 heart rate for 8 kilometers on a relatively flat track, okay? And I'm doing the same track, same time of day, same food beforehand, like sort of 4 weeks apart. So I'll go out and I'll run this 8 kilometers at 147, give or take 2 beats. So like it'll fluctuate between 145 and 149, but as long as the average comes around to that number. And my pace might be 5 minutes per kilometer, just say for example. And the training I do from then on, I might have, let's say I do 4 runs a week. 2 of them might be zone 2. Because the good thing about zone 2 is they don't create heaps of stress. So you can do them more often, right? Whereas you do a VO2 max session or a threshold session, you should be waiting sort of 3 days before you do your next one. Whereas people go out and they just run. And they're most of the time they're at threshold or even higher. And they do it 3 times a week and they wonder why they're injured 3 weeks later, or it's like they don't want to do it anymore because they've lost the motivation. So, but then if I come back in say 4 or 5 weeks time and I've done the right training, I've done a couple of zone 2s, I've done maybe one session to increase my size of my tank, and tune the engine, I can come back and it might be say 4 minutes 50 per kilometer for the same heart rate.
Okay.
So now I've got more efficient.
And the goal over a week or over 4 weeks?
No, you'd run over 4 weeks. Like you're not going to get like a massive amount of change in 1 week. You need to do that chronic training load. So you want to get sort of 4 to 6 weeks of training in. And the good thing about that test is anyone can do it. You just need a heart rate strap and a watch. And you want to make sure you're doing the same course. People don't change the course. Do it at the same time of day, ideally, with similar conditions. So you're getting relatively reliable data. And if your numbers are getting more efficient, you're on the right track. If you go out and you do it and your numbers are the same, you might sometimes get slower. You need to look at your training and what you're doing. So
you're saying you do 2 zone 2s a week and 1 where you're pushing yourself.
Yeah, it depends. Basically. Like depends how many times you run. Like some listening might be wanting to get into running for the first time.
Yeah.
Zone 2 is perfect to start because it's relatively easy. Obviously, you start with, we use time, we don't use distance. So we might say, all right, first run is going to be 20 minutes, zone 2. Okay, and we'll gradually progress that over time as you.
No matter what the speed is for that person.
Yeah, like you're just saying to the heart rate, forget what the speed is, and that's the hardest thing for athletes. So looking at the watch, going, it's 6 minutes 50 per k. I'm almost walking.
Yeah,
doesn't matter. Just get that done, and you'll become more efficient over time. And I find patience. People don't have patience for these results. They want to get the results in like 6 weeks. Like it takes years to develop a really good aerobic tank, and that's been consistent. So the worst thing about cardio fitness is it has a very high reversibility. So you lose it very quick. So you can do
2 weeks of detraining.
Yeah, so you can do 6 months of training. So and you can build up quite a decent fitness base. And within 3 weeks, you've lost more than a third. And then by 4 weeks, you've lost 2/3. So by 4 weeks of running, you've lost 2/3 of what you've done over the last sort of say 6 months. That's depressing to realize. Strength will hold a lot longer. But like when you're coming out of like a triathlon or a marathon block or whatever it's going to be, it's kind of depressing and that's where people get injured, right? They like 4 months ago, I'm doing this. So they just assume that, okay, I can go out and run similar paces and similar speeds, but creating a lot of stress in the system and not recovering well. And
that's why you just don't train, guys, and you don't, you never feel down and you can eat what you want. And
well, actually, when I don't do weights and that, I feel completely fine. But if I do a small number of weights, very limited, and like within only a certain few areas, I feel terrible. And then if I do all of the weights consistently, I feel great again. But either I do nothing or all of it. Because if I half-ass it, I feel shit because I'm probably out of balance in certain areas.
Yeah, I think it's like, and this is the thing, like when you start to run, like where you put your strength sessions during the weeks, like you don't do like a heavy leg session, the day before a run, like especially if you're getting new to it. So just be smart with where you space your sessions out. So for me, like if you're going to run 3 times a week, you normally start with a zone 2, might be on the Monday. You might have a more intense session on a Wednesday, and then you might finish with like a zone 2 on the Friday or Saturday. So you've sort of spread the intensity out. You've only got one real hard session in there. And then you can do like your strength sessions on the same day as your intense run if you want to try and capitalize on recovery. So you might do a hard run in the morning, and if you want to do a leg session, you might do that in the afternoon on the Wednesday.
So for me, looking at running we'll go for the athletic, like competitive side of things first.
Yep.
For me, looking to run 100 kilometers, does it matter whether I run 5 kilometers or 50 kilometers in a day, or as long as I'm getting that VO2 max and I'm
like I think
covering the
once again, you're gonna have to increase your volume significantly over the next sort of 6 months before the event. So you want to be trying to run that accumulative distance at least in a week. Like you need to be getting to, if you want to do it well, I mean, if you want to complete the run.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking. Like we'll talk competitively.
You want to try and accumulate sort of 100 Ks to 120 Ks, and at least probably in your highest week. So you might say, and normally it's 4 weeks out from the event. So 4 weeks out from the event. So when I'm writing someone's marathon plan or triathlon plan, I get the event date. I work back from 4 weeks for these big ones. And I go, this is the peak week. This is going to be your hardest week of training, and everything will be then we'll work backwards from here. So you might have a 2.5, 3 hour run on the Saturday, and then you're going to run on the Sunday with super tired legs, and you're going to do like another 2.5, 3 hour run on the Sunday. So you're going to experience what it feels like to run with heavy, sore legs, and you don't want to do it, and you just want to stop, and you want to give up. And
so do people just not do the 100 after that? Because they realize, because I would be like, I'm not doing this again.
But even so,
I'm not going to do this in 4 weeks.
But 100 is a ridiculous.
It's a ridiculous number. You wouldn't do the 100 on the weekend, but you would do like over that particular week.
Yes,
you would accumulate more than 100 Ks.
And then, I guess even more commonly would be people trying to do a half marathon or a marathon, 21 or 43 Ks, 42.8 or whatever
42.2, yeah.
So like whether or not like they're training for that or that, it doesn't matter. It's just as long as they're getting the cumulative.
Yeah, that chronic training load is important. So putting 2 sessions together consistently is what gives you that chronic training load.
Yeah. And
that's what gives you that fitness to be able to complete that race. And you've got you as a person to sit down, well, do I have kids? Am I working full time? Like, what are my available hours to train? Be smart with that. And it's always better to lower the bar, not raise the bar in this situation, lower the bar in this situation to a point where you can consistently tick that off and then gradually add more when you're more comfortable with it. But yeah, like, nutrition, sleep, all these things affect how often you can train. So
there you go, guys. Go to the bar. And it's the best training.
Yeah. When 2 years ago, I think it was, when COVID was happening and the West Perth players had to train individually away from the football club, I would run with Trent. And I was just following whatever you would
prescribing for him.
And I guess it's a general thing, or was it that it's more individual to each player?
No, the zone 2 is like it's the zone 2 run is individual to you based on your heart rate. So like you just say, guys, you got a 45-minute zone 2 today. Yeah. So then they have one of them per week. Yeah. Because like 5 years ago, I was like, zone 2 for athletes is just a bad idea because the more you run, right, the weaker you get. So the more you run, the weaker you get. It's a known fact that you lose strength the more you run, right? The phenomenon is that when you add strength to an endurance athlete's program, they get more economical and more efficient because they're now developing tissue stiffness, they're becoming more economical, they're becoming stronger, they break down less. But if you take like a powerlifter and go, mate, we want to run you 3 times a week to increase your aerobic capacity, they start losing strength. Which is not good, right? So, but for the footy boys, I was like, nah, they don't need to zone 2, but the more you read, the more you learn, the more you do, the better you get, right?
But so I found it incredibly difficult to run at a slower pace.
Yeah.
That was almost harder than running at just a stroll.
Because people have like a rhythm, right? You have everyone's like a natural running rhythm. And then, so like my rhythm would be like, I like running at sort of 450. I feel real comfortable there. But when I'm doing my zone 2s, like at the moment I'm not very fit, so I did my zone 2 this morning. I'm running at like 535s, 540s. Yeah. And sometimes it's hard to get into the rhythm for that. And it can quite become mechanical, like especially the long ones, like you get a bit sore in your quads. And
I feel like also when you're running mentally, if you're not puffed and not feeling it, you're like, oh, I'm doing fuck all.
Yeah. And that's
and you're like, oh, like why?
I had to slow Trent down because of that exact thing.
Trent was terrible. He didn't get it early on.
Yeah.
And Chris talked about it. Like after the potty we had last time, I said to Chris, like, what's your thoughts on it? Are you giving your footy boys, if you were in my position now, are you giving the footy boys zone 2? He's like 100%. Like they should be doing like at least one a week because you're developing the size of the engine. If you can develop the size of the engine, the athlete's going to be better for it, right?
Now let's move that topics more to day-to-day life. Is there benefits for that day-to-day, like for the average punter, just for general health?
Oh, I think it's probably, I wouldn't say more important, but for them, it's like it's an easier way to train, right? So you don't have to go out and murder yourself in a an F45, like where sometimes it can get really intense.
Yep.
It's not like you got to get up and really try and get yourself into the mode of like, I'm gonna go out and hurt myself today.
Yeah. So everyone loves that way. It's like, oh, I'm going to work out, and it doesn't feel like a workout.
Yeah.
That's why your coffee mums go for a walk on the coast.
Yeah. So they're
hitting zone 1.2.
Yeah, and they're fat burning. Like they're like in that sort of fat burning zone if they haven't had like their muffin beforehand. You know, but if they're going out and just doing a walk on the coast.
Yeah.
But yeah, for the everyday person, it's lower risk of injury. So that's a massive win.
Yep.
It's easier to do. Okay. You can do it with a friend because you should be able to hold a conversation. So you can drag someone along with you.
I'm out. Fuck. No friends.
No friends. Captain, no mates. Yeah. And then that's the thing. You want to try and, I think dragging someone along with you is really important, but understanding that if you come to a hill, it's a hot day, you're going to have to slow your pace. And that's probably the ego check in everyone.
The ego, yeah.
It's the same with me. Like it's hard to do it early on, but when you understand, like now I actually look forward to my zone 2s because the hard sessions the hard sessions should be hard. Like when you're doing a lot of zone 2 and then you get to your hard sessions, they should be really hard. Yeah. Like you're hitting VO2, your heart rate's up around 175, 180. They're repeat efforts with sort of short breaks. So like a good VO2 session for us on the bike would be like 4 minutes going like full tilt with like a 2-minute recovery. So very small recovery. Same. So my run VO2 sets are 1K repeat efforts. Okay. So when I'm fit, they're like around 340, which is not super fast, but they're still quick for me. Being how heavy I am. So 340 to 345, my 1K repeats with a 200 meter slow jog in between. And 200 meters goes pretty quick. It goes in like...
That's super fast for me, bro.
Yeah. So that's when you fit. Like now it'd be like 4-minute pace. I do like a 4-minute K, 200 meter walk, and I repeat those. And obviously as you get fitter, you build up. You might start at 3 of those. Week 2, you go 4, and you might hold 4 for the 3rd week, and you might come down for the 4th week as a recovery week, and you just gradually build on that. And that's a really good example of a VO2 set.
So, hang on a sec. Tex, can we just press pause on that? It's hell doing my head in that. It's distracting me from what Corey's saying.
Oh, okay.
But what about with your cross training, or is this just pure running training? Like,
no.
You're doing zone 2. Would you then do maybe I know you hate F45, but like a hit session for the hard one where your heart rate's going fucking bananas with low rest? Or
so and the good thing about heart rate is it's not biased, right? So you can do it on a cross trainer if you want, if that way you're inclined. If you want to do it on a bike, you do it on a bike. Swimming's obviously a pretty good low impact activity for people, even though I hate it so much.
But swimming,
passion.
I so notice the difference when I'm swimming.
Yeah.
Lung capacity
and also when you swim and then you run, like there's not much transfer in terms of the sports, but you generally feel a lot better if you're swimming and running at the same time. But yeah, like back to your point. If you're doing an F45 or a CrossFit sort of session, or you at one of those facilities, doing 2 of those a week, you know, those facilities, what I don't like about them is that they're doing that stuff every single day, which is a problem, which is why people always get injured, which is why we get 95% of you blokes coming back and girls coming back to us. We've got to fix you now, right? So you've been doing high intense activity day in, day out for however long, and depending on your genetics, how old you are, how well you recover will depend on when you break, because you will break. It's just more of a matter of time to when. So that's where, if you're an F45 member or a CrossFit member, I love those concepts, by the way. I'm not saying the concepts aren't great. It's just sometimes how they're, applied to people, especially like people who don't move well, who sit down all day.
Individuals.
So I'll be doing like, 2, maybe maximum 3 of those per week. And then you'd supplement that with like some zone 2 running or a bike or swim or whatever.
Because that's what I found. When I lost all that weight, it was good. But then maintaining mentally, I'm gone. So I want a new challenge. But also, like, you have to go in there with a bit of knowledge. Otherwise, every day is just a full-on fucking hit session. But yesterday was weights, and it was not maxing out or anything. So I just fucking ignored the clock. Just did my reps.
Did your reps.
Low heart rate. Took it easy and lifted a bit heavier rather than going.
Perfect. And that's when, if you get a good program that understands human physiology, because that's the premise of this, right? If you understand how the human body works with nutrition and exercise, you can then look across a week and go, well, if you're given multiple sessions back to back, right, with high intensity, now you're suppressing the immune system. Now you're more susceptible to being sick, which is why people are more run down. Fitter athletes are more susceptible to being sick because they take in more pathogens. They're fitter, their aerobic capacity is higher, and they're under more stress. But when you're training so I wrote my first Ironman plan 4 or 5 years ago, and I was cooked in the first 3 weeks because I'm a strength coach going, all right, I need to really improve my VO2 max. So I'm doing like 3 VO2 max sessions a week. And then through practice, and I've got the master's degree, I've got all the experience and all the knowledge in that regard, and I'm still making mistakes. And then when I learn more and read more about the sport, and I get a coach who then is programming for me, I'm looking at his going, oh, well, he's got like 80% of my weeks is zone 2. It's time consuming for us, obviously, but and I'm not getting injured. I've gone from running 3 times a week to 6 times a week, and not breaking down. So you've got to ask yourself, what do you want to do? And it's very demoralizing to people when they do get injured, because now they want to train because they want to be healthier. They want to get fit, and then you're injured, you can't do anything.
Because the general health as well, I think, is because we're not just talking about, like, we are talking about elite athletes and like training for competitive reasons, but also just for general health and just feeling better. I feel like this is the vehicle we're given to fucking last 70 years. Why not make it as comfortable as possible? And so, like, I wake up with hip pain, back pain every morning. Go to bed with hip pain, back pain every morning.
And look, everyone's situation is different. Like, we could go through and you've got history of footy, and if you're someone who hasn't played a contact sport for a long period of time, like, and you're getting sore, there's probably some movement deficiencies there. You got to figure out what they are. So go see someone to sort that out, because if you're impacting or you're piling on volume and stress to a foundation that's already broken, you're going to break down pretty quick. So for the everyday person, mate, zone 2 is by far one of the best things you can do, because one, it's motivating. You can get up and do it, and like you said, you're not going out grinding every single session and you're like, oh, I've got to do this again today. Like, make it enjoyable. Like, meet your friend run to your friend's house and have a coffee. Get them to drive you home, or you and your mate might run along the coast. And we're blessed to live here on West Coast. Our shoreline's amazing. You get coffee spots. Mate, your mate down there. One of my things me and my mate do. Me and Richo do. We'll go for a run along the coast. Sometimes we do efforts or zone 2. We might run for a couple of hours and then jump in the water. And then go get a coffee. Like, it's just make it enjoyable. It's me. You would know them. Me, Teddy, Timmy Guarda, Strikey. A group of past players at West Perth. We don't see each other enough anymore. So about 3 months ago, we created a run club. Every Friday morning, 5:30, we meet at Voyage. Run up the coast. We do maybe 5Ks. It's more of an excuse to catch up and just have a coffee. But and then we go for a swim after. It's fucking freezing at the moment. Jesus Christ. But it's good. And I like it. I like that sort of camaraderie and stuff. But
or like, you just, like me, we not many mates. They're all married, they got kids, and you just put on a podcast and you can start back from episode 1 of the Hard Yarns podcast and you can run for
what number is this, by the way?
119.
Wow.
So you've
plus the couple of like, we've done a live episode we never aired, 2 live episodes we never aired, and then one we lost with Joel Kelly.
So we've got about 450 hours if you want to go for a big run.
Yes.
Otherwise,
that's one thing I noticed as well. Like, there's so many things you can do while you're running to try and lower your heart rate. And nasal breathing is one of those things. So like, I'm very particular with my heart rate and my zones and stuff. So when I'm running and I start to see my heart rate climb, I'll just go back into sort of nasal breathing.
Is that because you're bringing in more oxygen through that way?
No, it's partly to do with, like, the air coming in is warmer, so there's a lot less metabolic process going on to try and cool it down. Let's cool it down, sorry. And then it's also diaphragmatic breathing is way better for you, and chest breathing, where your chest is lifting up when you're breathing, is like a stressful type of breathing.
I think that's what they do in meditation as well, like for that specific reason, I'd guess, to make you feel
and more. You can lower your heart rate by doing that.
So in and out through the nose only?
Yeah, correct. Now, it's harder than it sounds. Like, it's...
Oh, bloody oath, after a big weekend, some of us can't get anything up our nose.
That sort of in your mouth, out your mouth type of breathing is quite stressful. So trying to lower your sympathetic and your parasympathetic nervous system. Parasympathetic being like the rest and digest, like, you want to try and slow the system down. That's sort of nasal breathing, belly breathing. So if you can try and practice that while you're running, that's a really good one to do as well. So.
Isn't that counterintuitive? If you're trying to slow your system down, but you're trying to make your system
fitter?
Yeah.
So it is. There's a lot of things that are in science that are counterintuitive. But yeah, that's definitely one of them. So, but yeah, you want to try and reduce the heart rate while you're running to stay in that zone as well. But the podcast and listening to music when you're running, like, just...
I've done that and listened to Pendulum. So, fuck me. I didn't even realise that I'd run like 4:15 pace. I was trying to run like 5:30s.
Yeah, and there's a lot of research showing that what you listen to can dictate your pace as well. So if you listen to a podcast, like, these ones are quite boring at the Hard Yarn. So if I want to run slow, keep my heart rate low, I'll put a podcast on, because you sort of zone out thinking about what they're talking about. And your perception of the run is a lot easier.
Yes.
But when you're just in your own head, like when you're doing loops, like 25K loops, what you're talking about, they're horrendous.
Yes.
So that's going to
challenge.
Can you wear?
Are you allowed to wear headphones?
Yeah. I wore. So I actually in that run, I didn't wear. I had like a group of people I was running with the first 20-ish, 25 Ks, and so I didn't put headphones in. I tried to go as long as I could because I downloaded podcasts, so I wasn't using battery of streaming. Yeah. I used cord headphones because I didn't want to use Bluetooth for the battery life. Yeah. I knew I only had one charge. But I once I started listening to the podcasts, I was like, this is easy. I'm just zoning out. And it wasn't easy, but it was just like
you're zoning too.
I was zoning too. Yeah.
And just on a side note, if you really want to get in the weeds with Zone 2, Peter Attia does a podcast called The Drive, and episode 201, he does it's a 3-hour podcast.
Zone 201.
Yeah, it's 201 episode number 201. But he does a 3-hour in-depth dive with a dude who's like the freak of work with Tour de France cyclists. We're not going to go into the whole drug thing, but he talks about the metabolic pathways of how to develop mitochondria in Zone 2. So if you really get right in there, the first 45 minutes is pretty hard to listen to because it's very sciencey about cyclists, but then he gets into defining what Zone 2 is and going to lactate. So lactate is something we're starting to use at AI now. We've just got a lactate reader. So
what was the name of the podcast again for people that want to switch?
The Drive.
The Drive.
The Drive by Peter Attia. He's
Peter
an
MD.
Peter Attia with an A.
Attia.
He's an MD. He's a doctor.
Okay.
He's done keto and high carb and low carb, and that's another topic. But he gets this guy on who's just been in cycling for 30 years, and he's just all about the numbers. This is where you need to be. So lactate, for example. Yeah. So if you're doing, which is just a finger prick, put the blood on the test strip.
Yep.
You're looking at around 1 to 2 millimoles, which to people listening means nothing, right?
Yeah. For your regular people listening, lactate threshold. Do you want to explain that, Corey? It's the amount of lactic acid in your body.
Yeah, so basically when you're exercising, if you're at low intensities, you're burning fat as a fuel. So you're oxidizing fat. And so Zone 2, if you want to lose weight, by the way, doing Zone 2 is a really good way to oxidize and burn fat. So if your primary goal is to lose body fat, doing Zone 2 is, so there's another side note.
Well, that's what we were going to ask about was losing weight through exercise.
Yep. So
through running specifically.
Definitely running. Zone 2 is fantastic for that. So you're metabolizing fat, all right? But as you increase intensity, and when you get to about 80% of your maximum heart rate, now you start to tip over to burn more carbohydrates and sugars. So as intensity rises, obviously your lactate in your blood is getting higher and higher and higher. Now, they used to think lactate was a waste product and it wasn't used, but lactate's actually a byproduct of metabolism of glucose. So you're burning sugar to do high intensity. When you go to F45 and you're doing those sort of hard circles, your heart rate's right up, you're producing lactate.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you can shuttle that back and use that. So people who are fitter can sustain higher, obviously, outputs of exercise, and they can use their lactate, right?
Mine goes straight out.
Yeah.
It's gone.
So Zone 2 would be 2 millimoles. So once you get to 2 millimoles, you're pretty much tapped out of Zone 2 now. So you can measure that by doing that on riding on a bike, take some blood and figure out what it is. And then as you start to climb to sort of 4 millimoles, now you're into the point where you can't actually buffer it or use it at a high enough rate. So now you start to accumulate lactate in the blood, and that's that acidic feeling you get in your muscles. If you've ever done
200-meter run when you're in high school,
at
the end of the run where your legs are
your coaches program 35 squats for some reason, and you get into this, and your legs are just seizing up, and you feel that lactate, and sometimes if you work hard enough, you'll get that metallic taste in your mouth and that sort of really acidic environment. That's what lactate is. You're not clearing it enough, so your body becomes more acidic, and your body then will try and slow you down, obviously, because you can only do that for so long. And developing a better lactate threshold will be doing some Zone 2 work, but then also using the lactate system by doing your threshold work. So your threshold work should be Zone 4. So if someone has out here as a watch, you've got the 5 zones. Zone 1's usually just warm up. Zone 2 is your fat oxidation, mitochondrial building. Zone 3 is tempo. So everyone who's ever heard tempo running, that's your race pace. So if you're going out doing a marathon, you're going to sit in sort of tempo. You don't train much in that. You just sort of more race. Good to train in it, but it's to get an experience of it. Zone 4 is your threshold. So now you're trying to tune that system of lactate. So you're now starting to use lactate more efficiently.
What's Zone 4?
Zone 4 is purely threshold. So for me, it'd be 158 to 170. And
so which is it what percentage of your heart rate?
So 80 to 90.
Wow, okay.
So 80 to 90% of your heart rate max.
Because if you're working at that, eventually your body will figure out how to sustain it better.
Yeah, you get more efficient. You tune the system better, right? And then 90% above is your VO2 max. These are the hard ones that you can only sustain for like sort of 4 to 5 minutes maximum, but they're generally sort of repeat effort.
And zone 6 at 110%. That's the Pfizer jab.
Yeah,
that's where where the heart just blows up.
Yeah, and my heart rate since having COVID has just been all over the shop. So
really?
my training has been horrendous since having COVID.
Yeah.
Because I know my numbers quite well. So when I'm on the bike doing stuff, it's just everything's just hot. My heart rate's just so much higher at the moment.
Did you find a difference when you had the jab as well?
Not so much when I had the jab. Like it was more after once I had COVID. And I'm now in recovery from it. Yep. Like I'm now finding it's taking me a while. I'm a lot older too than my athletes, but we had 30 blokes get it at the club. So this is for people out there listening who are trying to train through it or. So we had 30 blokes get it at the club. 2 of them were so sick that one of them lost 8 kilos.
Yes.
Fuck. I want to get on that diet.
Yeah. But he's only he was skinny to start with. And I was like, where did you lose? So he's lost 8 kilos in like 5 days. And obviously a lot of that's fluid. Yeah. He's obviously lost all his carbohydrate content. So carbohydrates hold fluid. So for every gram of carb, and for most people out there listening, you can probably hold about 400 to 500 grams of carbs in your body at one time if you fully load it up.
Where?
Muscle and liver.
Yeah, right.
So muscle is where you store maybe 300 to 400 grams, and then liver is about 100. But if you have more muscle mass, you're going to hold more, right? So he's lost like all of his muscle glycogen. So now he's lost. If you can store 500 grams, that's 2 liters of water to hold it. All right. So times that by 3. It'd be 15. 1500 to 1.5 kilos of water mass to hold 500 grams of carbs. So he's already lost 2 kilos there. And then as he starts to lose a bit of muscle mass, he starts to lose how much he can hold. And next thing you know, he's just lost 8 kilos. It's ludicrous, right? So that's his recovery journey. And he's going to be he's 4 to 6 weeks away from playing footy. Yeah. So yeah, for me, it's been like.
Did he have anything underlying or was it just purely COVID?
Just purely COVID.
Yeah.
But he didn't have the booster. So he had the 2 blokes who got it the worst were the only 2 who didn't have the booster. And I don't know how that's not cause and effect. I'm not saying it's cause and effect, but everyone else had their booster, and they were sick and they recovered relatively well. Some guys are still lingering, but they were the only 2 that didn't have their booster and they were like out. So that was I don't know how much that says about it.
But maybe they've got that little bitch gene.
Well, one of them is the toughest bloke at the club, so I can't.
I'll take that back. Don't fight me.
Yeah. And then so you were talking about the losing weight side of things.
Oh yeah, going back to exercise.
Yeah, so with the exercise, like I'll find that not only the exercise, I find I almost have more of an impact when maybe it's in combination, but my diet.
Yeah.
So if I don't exercise too much, I still keep a little active, but I really am good with my diet. I'll lose that weight regardless of exercise.
Yeah, and one of the things I say to people when they first come into AI is that if you're here to lose weight, you are in the wrong place. Like you should never join a gym to lose weight because the first thing you need to change is nutrition because you'll never out-train poor nutrition. It's like
someone told me that yesterday.
Yeah?
Really?
Yeah, that exact word.
Yeah, you'll never out-train poor nutrition.
Unless I'm a fucking psychic. And
you've already had this conversation before. So, I mean, if you think about how many hours a week most people exercise, it might be 3 to 4, right? And you might burn, so let's say in an hour you burn, if you're going to use calories, you might burn, say, 600 calories.
What's the most accurate one? Sorry to cut you off there.
That's right.
And I know people get pissed off when I do this, but otherwise I'll forget.
Yeah.
What is the most accurate way of measuring? Is it calories, kilojoules, fucking grams? Yeah. And you always see these dumb stats like, if you have a can of Coke, you need to walk to fucking Africa to burn it off. Like, where are they taking this from? And I feel like some of it's bullshit, man, because you can have a can of Coke and your natural body will fucking digest it.
You'll metabolize it.
Yeah.
You like having one bad meal isn't going to send you off the scales, right? So we use calories in Australia, like the Americans, they use kilojoules. So kilojoules, so 1 calorie is 4 kilojoules. So I don't know why Americans like to make math harder for whatever reason. Like and 1
Corey's
meters.
pointing at our sound producer.
Yeah, he's sitting there with text sitting there. Why would you have 0.91 of a meter when you can just have 1 meter? Just have 1 meter. I don't know what you guys are doing.
Is a calorie as much energy as it takes to lift 1 gram off the ground or something like that?
Yeah, so a calorie is measured through an indirect calorie meter. So they basically heating up. So they'll put food into like a heat chamber.
Yep.
And they'll basically heat it up and find out at what temperature does it start to break down. So they figure it out through that. It's quite sciencey.
Yep.
There's a lot of pipes and shit going out of this machine and trying to figure out what's actually going into it and what's coming out of it. Yeah. But they measure that by heating it up and figuring out how much energy it takes to consume or break down that product, right? So that's how calories sort of come up with.
Because effectively our body is just heating the food up, breaking it down.
Yeah, and like you lose heat through heat. So you lose a lot of, so most of the time you eat food, you'll lose like some of that through heat, some of it through digestion, some you'll use for like muscle, like building blocks of like amino acids and things like that to build muscle, recovering and so forth, things like that. But so going back to the original point, joining a gym to lose weight is, if your diet is terrible, is just a bad idea. Like your expectation should be, I'm going to the gym I want to get stronger, I want to be more mobile. That's the reason why you probably join a gym. Mm-hmm. If you go into a gym to try and outrun your poor nutrition, you're going to be running for a long time because...
I testify to that because it just wasn't happening until I changed. I was doing all that running. I was doing 3-4 runs a week and nothing was happening to the... I'm not fat, but I had a bit of a belly and a bit of it's still there, like a little bit of a donut, and it will not go away if I don't fix my diet.
And you'll never, ever be on the marketing team for Good Life.
I know.
If you want to lose weight, don't join the gym.
Don't join the gym. But I mean, I own a gym, so but if you're coming to a facility to just purely lose weight, and your mindset is, I just need to try and outwork. I want to work really hard today so I can have that half a block of chocolate at night. Yeah. The mindset needs to shift to like, well, I want to exercise for the health reasons. I want to lose weight through eating smarter. Yeah. Why make life harder for yourself? I don't understand why people make life harder for themselves. Don't eat so much food that you have to try and exercise so much more. Like, it's
so
just
much easier to say than do, bro.
But I know. Food is so good, eh? Like, how good are carbs?
It's so good.
But you're right, because I would be doing the same sort of thing. I was working really hard and I was getting a fair bit of training done, probably this is after the run, and I was not seeing results.
Yeah,
and I was just seeing the same
And what you get is people when they start figuring this out, right, they start dropping their food intake, which is fine. Like you should be eating really good quality food, but they start to drop their calories for the day, and then they start training more, and then you get to like this point where they're not eating enough. So then their body starts getting to this stress response where the body starts slowing down its metabolic processes. You're not burning as much. You start to lose muscle mass, which then drops your metabolic rate. Yeah. So for people listening out there, like if you're eating below 30 calories per kilogram of body weight, which you can easily do that math, right? You just figure out how much you're eating a day and then divide it by your body weight. But try and divide it by your lean mass. So people eat for their full mass. Like I'm 85 kilos, probably 10% body fat at the moment. So I've got 8 kilos of non-functional mass per se. So I should be eating for around 77 kilos. All right. So for protein requirements, everyone should be eating between 0.8 and 1 gram, all right, per kilogram of body weight. So if you're 70 kilos, you should be eating around 70 grams of protein a day. Carbohydrates are a whole different story. But you want to make sure that you're consuming. People keep exercising more and dropping calories, and they get this point where now they get like soreness, injuries. Females can start to lose their menstrual cycle because they're not eating enough. Mm-hmm. So you want to be around 35 to 45 calories per kilogram body weight to be at a healthy range in terms of recovery and adaptation and things like that. So if you start to drop your food too much and try to train more, that's on the opposite end of the spectrum as well.
At an extended rate. You can maybe do it for 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
If you're going to cut and you want to lose and you want to be in a calorie deficit, now calorie deficit is a very hot topic at the moment, and I have a big issue with it. But if you want to be in a calorie deficit, you want to make sure your protein is a lot higher. So research shows that if you're going to be, let's say you need 2,000 calories a day, right? That's for some reason we figure that out. And then you need to lose weight. You would suspect that if you eat 800 calories a day, you're going to lose weight over time. They would say if you're going to go like severely drop your calories down to like say 1,200, you want to increase your protein content, okay? And research shows that you'll still maintain your lean mass while dropping weight. Not sustainable long term, but for short periods of time, you can get away with it. But like this whole calories in, calories out thing to me is something that needs to be, there's two arguments. One is that, if I need to eat 2,500 a day and I eat 2,300, I'm going to lose weight no matter what I eat. That's part of the mentality of like, well, I can have a donut, I can have sandwiches, I can have whatever it's going to be.
That doesn't take into account how your body's processing it and its efficiency and its metabolism.
And, I think it's was Newton's first law or something like energy can be neither created nor destroyed. So if you're eating something, the energy's got to go somewhere. So you usually dissipate through heat. You use it for energy. But we're not just simple mathematics, right? We are a very biological system with things going on. So if I say to you, you're going to eat, say, 1,500 calories of donuts a day, do you reckon you're going to lose weight? I'd highly suspect you wouldn't. If you're continuing to eat, that's a very extreme example. But the quality of food is really important. So the hormonal response in the system is so important for how you feel, how you look, how you recover. So, you go to this whole refined carbohydrate debate. Carbohydrates are a very good thing to eat, by the way, for athletes, especially your sweet potatoes, your brown rice, quinoa, all
not refined carb.
Yeah, I'm talking about the refined carbs. So your sugars, we know that
all the tasty shit,
all the really nice stuff it's addictive to eat, and you want to continue to eat it.
Yeah.
It drives hunger. So you eat sugar, it drives more hunger.
Yeah.
It becomes
I've tried to explain this to people before, like you're just going to be more hungry and eat more, and then it's just going to make it worse.
So I've always thought listen to your body what it wants, but if you're putting in that stuff you want more, so maybe don't listen as much.
Yeah, so it's a tough one. Its science is ever evolving. It's very hard to do research where you're doing that with like real people, because you've got to say you're only eating this for extended periods, and the studies they're too short. They're like 3 weeks, 4 weeks at max. Some of them are 8 weeks, and the research is very conflicting. So we know that if you don't eat carbohydrates, you eat like very minimal carbohydrates and train and like if you're going to do faster training or easy training, doing it with no carbohydrates is fine because you don't use carbohydrates at low intensity too much. So we know that if you reduce carbohydrates and you train, you burn more fat by doing that. So you burn more fat, which then the research even says that you have a sparing effect. So you hold carbohydrates for longer. So if you're ultra marathon, for example, you want to be very efficient at burning fat. So because we know that if you tap out of carbohydrates, you start to fatigue a lot sooner. So by doing training in zone 2, eating less carbohydrates before you do your zone 2 or easy training, you become very efficient at burning fat. And then that will spare the muscle glycogen or the carbohydrates for later in the race, so you'll fatigue later. But then there's research also saying that there's been no evidence to suggest that it actually improves performance. So there's so I've just finished my diploma in performance nutrition, and I read one article that literally said that faster training will improve your ability to burn fat. If you have oats before doing a zone 2 run, you're now going to oxidize or burn more carbohydrates because you've eaten carbohydrates prior to your zone 2 run. Okay, but if you don't eat your carbohydrates before your zone 2 run, you're going to burn more body fat. So but I don't eat high fat before running, by the way. That doesn't end well. Yeah. Okay, you're going to get gut distress. So if you're going to do like an easy 30-minute run in the morning fasted, there's people that are saying, don't do it, like it's ridiculous. But no, if you're doing zone 2 and it's easy, you're fine to do it. And then you can eat afterwards.
Every single morning run I do is fasted.
Yeah. But if you're doing intensity, like if I'm going for a hard run in the morning, I'm having oats like an hour beforehand because I know I need fuel to run that session.
So if I'm just, very broadly, if I'm just an average punter trying to lose weight, just a general zone 2 easy jog and a pretty good, well-balanced, clean diet.
And
which is
it's easy to say well-balanced. If you've never had a well-balanced clean diet, you don't know what that is.
Yeah, so just reducing refined carbs. So refined carbs are bread, pasta, muesli bars, obviously all your sugary stuff that we already know about. Yeah. We don't need to tell you what it is.
So sugars and fucking... bread.
Breads, dough, like wheat, all those things like that. They're all going to, cause fat deposition. So you're going to store body fat. Okay, so and that's the argument. People believe there's the carb insulin model. So if you eat carbohydrates, insulin spikes. So your insulin just goes up through the roof. And if insulin's high, you can't be burning fat. Okay, if insulin's low, then you can burn fat. So that's one argument. And the other argument is no, it's not about that. It's just calories in, calories out.
Who's right?
I think they're both right, and this is and it's science will catch up. But I think both arguments have a point to some degree. But I would argue that if you eat really healthy food, so real food, vegetables, fruits, if you're not eating meat, we'll talk about vitamins and stuff a bit later on. But with very minimal refined carbohydrates, I would argue you can eat more than you need and still lose weight if you're exercising and doing things like that as well. So that's the argument. But there's
where's all the research coming from? Because part of me is like, you're trusting somebody that you don't know, first of all, which is what everyone does. But with stuff like that, your control groups have to be so fucking controlled that if you've got 20 people doing the test, they have to have the same starting weight, same sex it should be.
Yep.
Same fucking
training experience.
Same diet.
Yep.
You got to trust that they're not having snacks and shit. So
behind closed doors.
Yeah, like
that's
is almost impossible.
That's why it's very, you don't see that research. It's so hard to do. They did this research like before ethics was around, like back in the 60s and 70s.
I don't even know how much ethics are still around with a lot of pharmaceuticals. But
pharmaceuticals are different, right? But so there was a German researcher, I can't remember his name now, but he basically wanted to see the effect of hormones and testosterone on individuals. Yeah. So he took I can't remember the exact population, but it took like 10 to 15 men and just reduced their testosterone levels down to like almost... How? Just like pharmaceutically, like taking drugs and blockers and like, doing all this crazy stuff. And so
that's how Bruce Jenner was.
Yeah. And seeing what happened to them over the time. And over the time of the study, they just got more, and they turned into women. Like there was like a lot more stuff going on, a lot more bickering going on. It was kind of a funny research, right? And I remember him presenting on it. But then if you talk about like cutting out nutrition, they did this one where they took these super obese people and just fed them basically vitamins and minerals, and they fasted them for 30 days. They didn't eat any food for 30 days. They're just giving them minerals and everything they need essentially. Yeah. And the weight just obviously dropped off significantly. But then then they started to slowly reintroduce food back into their diet. But yeah, it's just what you can do with fasting and nutrition is kind of crazy, right? But there's so much hot topics on it. So sports dietitians have to say a certain thing because they're under like a body. They need to say that you need to eat this amount of 40 to 60% of your diet from carbohydrates is ludicrous for the average person. And especially if you're an athlete training at very high level and very high intensities, I still think that's too high. I think you need to be more around the sort of 20 to 40 and around, you should eat your carbohydrates around your training sessions that are intense. So fuel your body for what the session requires. So if you're going to F45 and you know it's going to be a hard session, carb up, oats, banana, whatever you sort of want, right? But if you're going for an easy run, you don't necessarily need to eat all that carbohydrate for the run, okay? So that's you should think about periodizing your nutrition for what your body needs. Yeah. Think about it that way.
And if you don't know anything about it, get in touch with Athletics Institute.
Athletic Institute. Yeah, that's actually a good point.
Or anyone who has half a brain when it comes to human physiology. So someone you trust and know. But if you're going for if you have an idea of what your maximum heart rate is and you've got a watch on and tells you it's going to be up high, then fuel that with carbohydrates.
Because half the battle is, let's say, I think I'm eating a nutrition balanced diet and I think this is all good. But the reality is if I was to go to an expert, they'd be like, bro, this isn't well balanced.
Yeah, and this is one of the difficult things I'm having with the vegetarian stuff. Yep. I'm finding I'm pretty sort of like I'm narrow with what I'm eating. Yep. And I don't think I eat a lot of vegetables and a lot of different vegetables, all the different colours. I feel like the different colours is a pretty good indicator of what you're getting out of them. But my snacks are not great. Yep. They're carbohydrates and refined carbohydrates, as well. So I guess trying to find a happy balance there. I'm actually considering going back to meat and slowly introducing it back. I've introduced fish back into my diet, and it doesn't seem to be aggravating the gut. I will not go near red meat for the time being, but I might try a chicken meal soon just to slowly, because I find it in my head, it's so easy to eat a healthy diet with meat. Oh, it's like so much chicken easier. And a nice salad is, for me, that's I like the idea of that. It's nice and tasty.
Easy. Tash Peterson's a big fan of that one.
Yeah, but do you know what I mean? Like that's I find that's easy. I feel like it's actually quite challenging for me to make I'm a single dad. The nights where I have to fucking feed Scotty and do all that by myself, sometimes I'm like, what's easiest?
Quick and easy, yeah. Carbs are quick
usually for me, it's a stir fry. It's still vegetables, but there's plenty of carbs, oils, and the noodles, sauces.
Those noodles, they're so tasty, but they're so bad for you.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So that'll be my standard.
That's one thing I'm good at, man. I do all my shit without the noodles or the rice.
I did it last night. I did a vegetable stir fry, just vegetables. Yeah. But the sauces, I'm not 100% sure whether they were that great, but it was just vegetables.
Yeah, vegetable oil and sugar are two things you want to try and avoid. But going back to your point with what were we talking about? Oh, when people come sit down with me and I'm going through their nutrition, like we look at like a player like one of the guys you should credit from East Perth. He comes in. Yep. I'm going through his nutrition. I'm going like sitting there going, okay, is this typical? Like, yeah, this is what I normally eat. Like, he's just going through. I'm like, okay, well, this is what I want you to try and eat from now on. We want to put your carbohydrates around your hard training. So we know Tuesday and Thursdays are hard training. So around that, carbs, just eat the carbs. Game day's coming up. You need to make sure you're fully loaded up with carbohydrates to perform at a high level. We know carbohydrates, lower your perception of effort. Your fatigue is a lot later on in the game, and you're going to perform a lot better. So we know that. But then but day to day, sitting at your desk, you don't need to be eating 4 cups of rice with your chicken. And then, after 4 months, he's lost 14 kilos, and he's feeling.
Yeah, because when he came over, and I seen him, I didn't think he was fat or overweight, but he was solid. And now he's ripped.
Yeah, now he's looking really good. Yeah. But now he understands when he needs to eat that type of food. And I don't want you guys, people listening, to stop eating their favorite foods. Like, you need to eat the things that you enjoy doing. It needs to be sustainable.
Yeah, pussy.
I was gonna reference this podcast to our AI members, and that's just gone straight out the window.
We can edit that bit for when you reference it.
Yeah. No, we won't.
Yeah.
Just we'll give them the clip without that eating pussy reference.
Yeah. So I think you need to eat those things you enjoy. If your favorite meal is like bolognese, eat pasta bolognese, eat it, like have it. Carbonara, whatever, have it every now and then. But if you're consuming those things on a regular occurrence, you're going to be gaining weight over.
And if you're having carbonara and your knees are weak and your arms are heavy, don't do it because you'll vomit in your sweater.
If your mum made it for you. Yeah. And that's the thing I talk about with kids, for example, like my nephews or whatever, or my daughter, like we try and sit there. There's nothing wrong with my daughter having a sandwich, like white bread sandwich.
I almost think that if your kid's active, feed them whatever the fuck you want, man. Because growing up, I was so active, we ate everything, and it didn't matter. We were ripped.
Yeah. But when the next meal is crackers, and then the next meal after that is pasta.
Yeah.
And then the next meal after that is maybe an ice cream, for dessert. And then the next morning, wake up and she's got oats. Yeah. And every meal is carbs or refined carbs. You're like, oh.
There's a really good book called Deep Nutrition. And I think everyone who has kids or is thinking of having kids should read it, because it talks about epigenetics. The things that you eat can dictate what genes your child gets. But it's not so. I somewhat agree with you with the kids. Like, they can sort of eat whatever they want. They're very hormonal, right? So you're always active, you're running around, but you develop habits. And I was listening to Jason Acker-Madison on a podcast, which I got the Footy Boys to listen to, and he was talking about his peak years at Brisbane, and it was all the passes, all the rices, lower back soreness all the time. He obviously finishes playing football, and then he gets to get fat real quick. So then you see every AFL player when they finish, they start blowing out pretty quick.
Happened 100%.
Xavier Ellis, shout out.
Yeah. They start putting on weight real quick, right? Because they've taken these habits from elite sport, which is kind of sad.
Yep.
And then they go into the general population, they start gaining weight, and it's because of the food they're consuming.
Yeah.
And now Jason Acker's gone from eating all that stuff to a lot less refined carbohydrates, and all the aches and pains start to go away. He starts losing weight. And he tells a really good story on there about one of his athletes who starts doing it with him. And they're thinking he's on steroids because he's just like getting all these wicked results over a couple of years, not over like a short period of time, over a couple of years. But he starts performing really well and feeling great and and you look so much better when you're leaner, obviously, as well. So,
what about, is there any food you can eat that encourage testosterone, or is that a myth?
Good question. Off the top of my head, I'm trying to think.
Because you mentioned it before, when you're reducing the testosterone in men pharmaceutically.
So
is there stuff
fats,
that you can...
So if you eat... So I was actually read an article this morning. So if you eat less fat... So people who eat less fat, in males particularly, tend to have a lower testosterone count than males who eat enough fat. So we're talking about good fats here, like your fish, your avocados, your oils and things like that, your good stuff. They tend... Because they're involved in cholesterol production and obviously sex hormone production. So if you're not eating enough fat, then you're going to get some testosterone reduction there. So, but then the article went on to say there was no sort of difference in their makeup based on that. So there's obviously conflicting evidence. They probably need to do a longer series of trials.
Yep.
But yeah, if you're not eating enough fat, that'll affect your sex hormones.
Yeah. Well, speaking of sex, that's a good hit. Another one off the top. Erectile dysfunction and diet. Is there a link between that?
I'm not educated enough to say otherwise. No,
yeah.
I'd have to pass on that
when
one.
I was looking at my back, going for my back, I had a look on the charts, and where my back injury is related to your dick as well. Yeah, right. So I was like, I wonder if there's any effect there, because sometimes I might not be able to be as hard as I want to be, and I actually don't doubt that has something to do with my nerve root and my nerve block right where I've got my bulge discs and
inflammation, right? So if you go to nutrition, so going back to that book, Deep Nutrition, it's about epigenetics and how you can shape your DNA with what you eat. So if you're someone who eats a lot of refined sugar and refined crap, it takes a long time. This doesn't happen in like 6 months. We're talking over years and years and years of doing this. Your DNA will start to change somewhat, okay? And they found that, like the example is if mothers have children really close together, the second child, so if you're the second child in your family, generally doesn't get the full genetic potential of your parent. So they don't have that symmetry. They might not have a symmetrical face. Like we're talking like about how their appearance.
Sorry, Chris.
Yeah.
So generally, one, right?
So generally, the first child gets blessed with the best genetics because the mother is, if there's not enough time in between kids giving birth. So if you're having your second child really close together,
they've been depleted of.
Yeah, like they haven't fully recovered from the first birth, so they're not like. So when they're having their second child really close in succession, and look, I'm not an expert on this topic by the way, but definitely read that book. It sort of talks about these things. But the first child generally has the best genetics. They're generally more symmetrical. There's less sort of deformities. And if you have kids really close in succession.
6 fingers in each hand. So I didn't get that one.
Yeah. So food can have a big impact. So going back to inflammation. So that's the inflammation issue, right? So if you're eating a lot of refined stuff, there's C-reactive proteins, a marker of body inflammation. So if you're eating those types of foods like refined carbohydrates, lots of bread, lots of pastas, I'll talk about my boys with this all the time. Like, and some of them like, shut up, Granny, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And other blokes are like, oh, okay, I'll take it on board and try some things, and they've got some benefit out of it. But that might cause inflammation, which might be associated with that as well. And if you're drinking, for example, that's even more inflammation, which is even worse. So
last couple of weeks.
I really do wish I had this information when I was playing football and growing up and younger, and not even that, just for general
health.
Just say that, but it would have been different back then as well. We wouldn't have known. We would have been given different advice, and probably
no, that's what I'm saying. I wish I was
given another lot of different advice.
Well, I used to eat 14 Weet-Bix like a morning, like before footy. Like I would never do it now. Like no way.
I don't know.
My parents had no idea what they were doing. Like we ate relatively well. Like dinner was always like meat and veg and something else, right? Everyone pretty much had that growing up. But it was the snacks at school weren't great. Like your mum give you money, you go buy cheesy. Like how good are cheesies? Shout out to them.
Oh, it's nice if you had parents with money.
I went to the same school as you, Wanneroo. I went to Wanneroo.
Well, you were well done. You were the well-off Wanneroo.
No. I was at that school.
I used to steal Corey's lunch.
Yeah, I saw some things at school that I did not want to say. But yeah, so. And your parents, they're your mentors, and they can pass on really good habits, or they can pass on poor habits. So, and it's unfortunate. Like I feel like it's unfair for the kids sometimes.
Yeah, I did want to hit on. Did you have something you were going to say, Branchy?
I know missing out red meat, vitamin Bs for athletes.
Well, so that does go to. We were talking about that, but like the vitamin B12, I've been having the supplements.
Yep.
I eat eggs.
Yep.
So I get a bit out of that. But the vitamin B12, so I started with a spray, which you suggested was going to be far more absorbable.
Yeah, so the research is conflicting, and there's not enough research to say definitively like this is going to be a lot better. But it seems to be that if you're taking like a straight sort of pharmaceutical grade vitamin B12 spray under the tongue, it's going to absorb a little bit quicker than the tablets, because tablets have gelatin and other binding agents that need to break down with it. So let's say that if you're getting that's going to be slightly better.
But to mention why you're doing that is because that's the only thing you can't get in a vegan diet, a vegetarian diet. Was that right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you're taking out meat, so if you're taking out all animal products, you are now getting pretty much no vitamin B. Vitamin B12, sorry. Vitamin B12, which is really important for energy production, nerve production, and red blood cells.
Isn't the majority of the world's population vitamin B12 deficient regardless?
No, like I think if you are eating meat, like so for example, the spray that you're talking about, you get about 500 micrograms of the vitamin B12, and the article I sent you this morning was showing that you only absorb about 10 micrograms.
Okay.
So of that 500 microgram spray. So the
tablets that they shifted me to. So I went there for the spray, and they had the tablets, and they were less expensive, same brand, same everything. And she's then moved me and said, "Look, I suggest trying these tablets because these ones are actually going to be more
so create more bioavailability.
Yes.
So then that's, I don't know if she's giving you like another one, because there's types of vitamin B12.
Yeah. Okay.
And
it was a slightly different one as well. Yes.
Yeah. So you've got hydroxycobalamin, which is like another one, and then that's the one that we sort of make ourselves. Methyl.
That's the one.
That's the one that comes from.
That's in a lab, isn't it?
Yeah, no. Methyl, the second word always gets me is like cobalamin.
Methyl just means there's one carbon group with 4 hydrogens on it.
Yeah, and so that's
Delvey, the science teacher.
So that's in red meat. That's in animal products. So if you're not eating them, you're not going to get that, right? So athletes who are performing and they're vegan, they should be taking a vitamin B12 supplement. And then your RDI, so your recommended daily intake, is about 2 micrograms. So if you're getting a spray and you're only getting 10 of the 500, you're still above.
So the studies that I had seen was that 90% of the Earth's population is regardless vitamin B12 deficient.
Yeah, right.
So that doesn't necessarily mean they don't find it easier to get it, but they should be supplementing as well.
Yeah, so like it's definitely something, if you're not eating meat, you would want to be chucking into your daily routine.
Because if you don't have vitamin B12 in your diet, what can't you absorb? Other vitamins?
Yeah, so if you have too much vitamin C, for example, like which most people would have probably too much, you actually reduce the amount you can actually absorb vitamin B12. But vitamin B12 is important for red blood cell production. So your aerobic capacity, aerobic fitness, general health, and then you got like nerve conditions as well. So it's involved in nerve conduction and production. So
yeah, I probably need.
So if I start 3 times a week having like not fried chicken, but roasted chicken or something like that, and fucking whatever.
Is chicken considered a red meat?
No,
that's what I mean.
So red meat's got the highest amount, and
this is what I'm talking about.
I don't eat red meat either, so I'm having the spray daily. So
and is that why? Because
I'm not getting the red meat, because I know that I'm eating a lot of good food, but red meat's the primary one where you get it from.
And is certain red meats, like the way they're raised, is that going to be an issue as well? Like, so if you're factory farmed,
it comes in. I mean, that's like hormones and other stuff that goes, and that's a whole other topic. But I'm assuming there's definitely some difference.
Well, Sad Guru on Joe Rogan was talking about just the lack of topsoil nutrition is affecting how much vitamins are actually going into
the animals,
into everything, into all the food production, the fruits, the grass, everything, and then that's getting passed on. Whereas like in the 20s, it would have taken 2 oranges, I think he said, for X amount of vitamin C. Now it takes 8. Yeah, because the topsoil has been fucked.
Yeah, and the quality is obviously it's mass production, right?
Yeah. So, and if any ladies looking for some vitamin D, DanielDelby.com.
But it's like part of my diploma was talking about like athletes who live in like the UK, right? So they need to supplement vitamin D
and vitamin teeth
and vitamin teeth. But like,
why is that? Because there's no sun.
Yeah, so not getting enough sun time, right? So vitamin D like could be something that you might use or take just during the winter time here in Perth. Like we're blessed with sun here, so you don't need it most of the time. But during winter, taking like an oral vitamin D or a spray just through that winter period might help.
And again, if anyone wants oral vitamin D, I will.
I'm so glad you're here. It's probably a dry podcast.
Yeah. If you're getting the vitamin D from the sun, should you be getting it earlier in the morning to make sure you're obviously not getting damaging?
Don't know.
I think there's conflicting evidence.
Yeah, there is. There's. I read the article probably a couple of months ago, and they're not exactly sure. Like the time frame and windows and stuff haven't clearly been defined. But getting 15 to 25, 30 minutes is like the recommended.
Without sun cream, hey?
Yeah. Obviously, sunbream. Like all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and I guess that's probably why people recommend doing it earlier in the morning.
Yeah.
There was a study I heard about. I don't know if I read it, but maybe you can bust the myth. They were saying that the correlation between sun and skin cancer and the damage that the sun's causing isn't actually the sun being any harsher than it was. It's caused from our bodies having a lack of vitamins and minerals to stop it from being deformed.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Did you hear any of that?
No, but
so there was some.
I would also just like with no evidence and just using my own brain, my bro science, my own bro science. That I'm assuming
China's
sun cream.
Fault?
I'm assuming sun cream's pretty. Like, there's a lot of harmful chemicals in that are going on your skin. So I'm assuming that's probably
skin's your largest organ. So it's obviously it absorbs a lot and does a lot.
So I'm assuming you're probably absorbing a few. It's like the which one's what benefits more? Are you putting the chemicals on to stop the skin cancer? If you're out in the fucking sun every day, you're going to be putting sun cream on.
Yeah. There's always a consequence to every decision you make, whether it be good or bad. And if you change something else is going to change. So you just got to figure out what are you trying to achieve and make that change accordingly.
Yeah.
But how do you trust who's got what they say is in it? Like, who do you get your vitamins from? Like, how do you know it is what they say?
So if you want to talk like proven supplements, there's about 5 on the planet that have been proven by research to actually work, and one of them was creatine. And so we're talking about...
Doesn't creatine just make you fatter by holding more water?
No, it does do that, but it also it's really important for like that short energy sort of burst training, so lifting weights, so maximal sprint work or whatever it may be. So you've got to be depends what you want to do, right? But if you want to gain muscle mass and you want to gain some size, taking creatine is a no-brainer.
But is it picking the right creatine?
Creatine monohydrate.
Yes.
Monohydrate.
I think in year 11 I had that and I just blew out. Like, I got fucking fat. But you can tell, man.
Yeah, but you wouldn't understand. You were just probably taking lots of it, right?
Yeah.
So there's a dosing response. So you can take, so if you take for over 5 days, if you take 20 grams, or if you take 4 grams of 1 teaspoon over 30 days, at 30 days you'll be the same as you were. Yeah, so you can dose up a lot quicker by doing the loading period. But taking it every day pretty much gives you the same result, but you get there a bit longer. But I'll have athletes come from other waffle clubs and be like, they told me not to take it. And
is it legal in waffle?
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
Right.
It's naturally producing like red meat and other things.
Yeah.
So and he was like, I was told not to take it. I was like, what? Like he's skinny. He's trying to gain weight.
Because isn't it also good just for general health?
Yeah, like it is for general health as well. Like obviously, if your energy system is a bit more efficient, that's obviously a benefit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but for this athlete, I was like, well, mate, you need to load up on it every single day. Here's your nutrition plan.
Mm-hmm.
He calls me like 6-7 weeks later, man, I've put on like 3 kilos. I'm like, yeah, awesome. Like keep going, and now he's 5 kilos heavier. And that's just a simple supplement. Like, and that's if you're an athlete who wants to gain mass. And improve your strength, you should be taking creatine. And you don't need to load through too much, like cycle through it. You just keep taking it. But if you want to drop a bit of weight, take it out. So it depends on sort of what you want to use it for.
My second pre-season of seniors at West Perth, I started using creatine because I guess I didn't have any science, didn't know how much to have.
A mate would have been taking it, you would have copied him.
Fuck, I got big.
Yeah.
Like
muscly or fat?
Nah, muscles.
Really?
Like the biggest I've ever been by a fuck. That photo that I like to show you from time to time, I'm on creatine.
Was your body worse for injury though?
So worse because I didn't train properly. I didn't do leg weights. I was fucking like,
Jacked
the don't skip leg day guy?
Yeah.
That's me.
Yeah.
I was like the tiniest fucking legs. And I thought in my head, I'm running so much. That's my leg weights.
Yeah.
But no.
So I've CC'd Branchy in an email with like the International Olympic Committee's consensus statement on supplements that actually work, right? So if you want the reference article with all that, then
I'll put them all in the
show
description.
notes. Yeah, in the show notes.
Yep. Can you?
So but there's 5. So in performance, it's creatine, it's caffeine, it's beta-alanine.
What's beta-alanine?
So beta-alanine is it's a muscle buffer. So we're going back to the lactate. So you can do things at a higher intensity for a little bit longer.
Yeah, okay.
By taking beta-alanine.
So that's more your high-performance athletes that want that?
Yeah. Sodium bicarbonate is another one. And nitric oxide. So nitric oxide is something you get from beetroots. Yep. So you would have heard of beetroot juice or beet it. There's pretty good. Yeah, a few brands around. So that basically increases vasodilation. So it allows your capillaries in your veins to expand more and allow more oxygen to get to the working muscle. So having like a beet it or a beetroot juice prior to doing some cardiovascular work, you're going to be a bit more efficient, and you'll probably notice you might be a bit better off by having it. So but everything else, like there's no real hard scientific evidence to say, yep, these things work. So, but creatine, 100%, caffeine's an endurance performance. So if you want to improve cardiovascular, if you want to improve endurance performance for your ultra, caffeine all the way, but getting the dose amount right is important. So funny story. So about 4 weeks ago, we had a few scratch matches with the footy boys. And I was like, all right, so we need to get better at halftime, eating food, supplements and stuff to try and improve performance at the back end of the game. So I said, here's some no-dos. You may cramp. You may feel really good. Like if you haven't had caffeine, if you're sensitive to caffeine, don't have too many.
Yeah.
If you're a coffee drinker and you have lots of caffeine, you might have a few more.
Yeah.
But caffeine, you need about 3 milligrams per kilogram of body weight to have a really good effect. So if you weigh 100 kilos, one no-do is 100 milligrams. So you'd have 3 no-dos to get 3 times your body weight to get some sort of performance benefit.
But you'll be awake for 2 days, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one coffee is about 140 milligrams of
so one
caffeine.
no-dose is...
So it'd be like 2 coffees, just a bit more than 2 coffees, right?
Right.
So anyway, I said to the boys, that you can try it. I'm not making you do it. It's up to you. Here they are. We got 2 scratch matches to try and get some workings and see what happens. And our players don't normally cramp. So caffeine's a diuretic. So I said to the players, you need to increase your electrolyte consumption and you need to increase your water consumption. And some obviously listened, some didn't. But we had 10.
If you want to find out about that, Precision Hydration podcast.
Yes.
And fuel now.
On the hard yards.
But we had 10 players cramp. Like third quarter, we get 10 players go down with cramp. We're like, I'm sitting on the sidelines going, this is not good. But like it's a scratch match. No one cares if we win or lose.
Yeah.
So then next week we conversation like, guys, did you have too much? Did you have too little? Some guys like, I actually didn't drink much water. Caffeine's a diuretic, so you're going to piss more. So then they start diluting their system. And then the next week we had about 4 blokes cramp. And some players got some really good benefits out, so they're sticking with it now. And some are like, "No, Granny, I'm done with that." I said, "Yeah, all good." And that's why you try things in training and in
individual players. It might
correct.
work.
So some people are going to get benefits, and some people aren't.
Before Sudafed was like banned as a pre-game sort of thing, we'd all have cold and flu tablets. Before footy. Like I remember,
a bit of MDMA before the game, eh?
Mate, I think it was my first 2 seasons.
A little bit of Shane Warne.
I think it was my first first season. It was still okay, and then at the end of the season, they said, "Okay, this is banned, this is banned, this is banned." And Sudafed cold and flu tablets. So even your cold and flu tablets, if you got a cold, you couldn't have them. But mate,
they mess you up.
That it was elite.
You feel good.
It's so good. Like I'd run around like it was the greatest. You have some at halftime as well, and then you crash pretty hard at the end of the game. But fuck, that was so good.
Going back to creatine, one thing that obviously through 15 years of doing this, like when you get an athlete who takes creatine, some put on weight really quick, but they keep the same training volume. They start running. So if they're a running based athlete and their goal is to improve performance at running, you wouldn't recommend creatine for someone like that because they're going to get heavier, they're going to get a bit slower, they become more or less efficient, right? So you don't want to get too heavy. But if you're someone who wants to put on size, you're in the gym, and you just like, good life, you're trying to get ooge, then you want to make sure that you're having creatine. But if you're someone who is an athlete who is a running-based sport, netball, basketball, whatever it may be, you're going to add on more weight. So, and adding more weight adds more stress to the system when you start running. So if you carry an extra 3 kilos around, there's a lot more stress going through the joints, right? Through the tissue.
Yeah.
So this is where you get your injuries. So you would have had like a big influx of weight real quick, and then your training volume would have changed. So that's when you get sore and stiff.
I'm back like so bad. I got
broken.
stuck. I got stuck. You might have been at the training session, and we were jogging in the warm up. Just before we'd even started doing lunges or anything, it was like jogging back and forth just to limber up, and my back went bulge disc, or what do they call it when that goes?
Creatine doesn't cause bulging disc, by the way.
No, but as in like because of the lack of, I'd been carpet laying all day, and then the lack of balance within my weights programs
fucking painful.
Was all biceps, triceps, and chest.
Yeah, no legs.
And no legs, no dips.
Speaking of which, my OT found out what the fuck's wrong with my back finally.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Speak to us.
After fucking 18 fucking...
After 11 years.
Yeah.
She sent me for another MRI, but all the other MRIs that I've gone for, they're just like, look at the disc, L5S1 and all the disc. And it's always come back, L5S1, there's a bulge. But she wrote on the notes to do a MRI of the sacroiliac joint, the SI joint.
Yep, SI joint. Yep.
So as I got out of the machine, the guy's like, oh, wait, there's a note on here. We need to check the SI joint.
Yep.
And the SI joint is right where really my pain has been. It feels like there's a fucking deep knife in there. And I just want to stick a knife in and like wiggle it around.
It's nerve, eh?
Oh, worst. Yeah. And then the results came back and she's like, yep, it's exactly what I thought. There's a 5 millimeter bulge into the SI joint. So half a centimeter compressing my nerve.
How can you fix that?
So they've missed that for like 11 years. I'm like,
so
man,
all your fucking
so frustrating, eh?
So frustrating, man.
And so now?
So now she's been treating me lots of traction.
Yep. So trying to create separation in the joint.
Yeah. And it's just strengthening exercises like clams and glutes and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And I haven't been, touch wood, in too much pain, even after a big drinking night. Yeah. In the last sort of 4 or 5 weeks, there's been some really bad days. Like the podcast day was pretty fucking sore. But that was a huge weekend. And maybe 1 or 2 other bad days. But she's found it, and she had the same thing. Hers was 9 mil, and she got it back down to 2 mil.
Yeah.
So fingers crossed. Shout out to Jade.
Well done.
It was Jade.
Oh, really?
At Health Central, yeah.
Did you give me the Mackenzie's protocol to try and help with that? Like a lot of extending through there and that?
She has said stuff for that. Yeah, she said to do some Mackenzie's from memory, but I haven't been doing those ones.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's and like drinking obviously will flare it up.
Yeah,
time.
drinking makes it fucked.
Way worse. Like I've got arthritis.
That's why I just do math now.
We'll finish soon because I need to leave to go do something. But just quickly, you were talking about. You were talking about like the holding water weight with the creatine.
Yep.
So I've noticed, and I guess this is because your body dehydrates maybe overnight. Does it?
Yeah, like obviously you're not drinking throughout the night, and so that's why breakfast is called breakfast because you're breaking a fast overnight.
So when I wake up in the morning, you see yourself in the mirror and you're like, oh, sweet, like how good's this? And I'll be on a fasting day and I'll just be drinking water, and by the end of the day I still have a belly or so what's that water weight and how do you avoid that?
People can fluctuate. I can fluctuate 2 or 3 kilos in a day just by, if I'm eating carbohydrates on a particular day, I'm generally a bit more bloated. You can actually see a physical mass change by the end of the day because you've taken on carbohydrates. If you're taking on fluid, obviously there's, like I said, to store carbohydrate, you need 3 grams of water. So, but if you're depleting, like generally that's why bodybuilders, they'll consume lots of carbohydrates, but they won't drink water because they want to be full, but they want to look shredded. They don't want to look swollen. They want to look big, but shredded. That's why they'll eat lots of carbohydrates leading into a bodybuilding show. They won't drink much water. They'll have like those water loading things, and then they'll just don't drink water in the day, and they're shredded, right?
Yeah.
But if you start consuming heaps of water, you just start blowing up because you start pulling water into the cell. Yeah. You get that swollen look. So, but you're saying that by the end of a day of a fast,
even I'll still drinking water, I guess. But I'll be fasting. I won't eat, and even today, I had a banana today, but it doesn't matter what it is, so it's just the water, eh?
Yeah, it's just water weight. Like you're not going to lose like heaps of body fat in one day from not eating food. Like,
but it's significant. Like even sideways, it'll look like I'm fucking got a.
That's bloating though.
Yeah, the bloating.
That's the way your body and your stomach and your gut bacteria.
Yeah, so gut health is so important, man. Like gut health talks to the brain. There's all this there's a lot of good research out there talking about gut health, but gut health can affect how you feel, your emotions. There's a connection between brain and gut. Yeah. So if you're not eating good foods, that can sort of throw your emotions off as well. It's like when you don't train for when I don't train for 3 days, I just get moody. I'm like, moody? Like, I haven't exercised for a couple of days. That's probably why. There's these things, all these things are so intertwined. That's why I hate when people sit and go, it's just this, like it's just calories in. No, it's not. There is so much more to it than you think.
Your body's a system.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your respiratory system doesn't work on its own.
Yeah.
Your blood doesn't work on its own. Everything works together. So you can focus on some areas and improve it. But
so like if you do like a keto diet, right, and you wanted to stop eating carbohydrates, because you can survive without any carbohydrates.
You were big on this the last
two years ago. I was like, so keto is very extreme. Like it's not something that many people are going to try. If you're doing like an endurance event, I wouldn't recommend keto to anyone.
I've done it before.
Unless you're really like, okay, I understand why this is my long-term health choice. This is what I'm going to do. It's very hard to do. I've like measured blood every morning for like 6 months. I've got like, ketos. So
it's the best I've ever felt.
Yeah, you feel great and you're very lean, but can you sustain that for the rest of your life? Look, I think you're having like periodized nutrition where you're eating carbohydrates when you need them, and then eating fats majority of the time. But then going back to my original point, which I've sort of got sidetracked on, what were we talking about a second ago?
Gut health systems working together. Yeah, bloating.
I've lost my train of thought here.
That's all right.
I can't remember what I was talking. I can't remember the point where I was going with that point. But yeah, like going back to the carbohydrate stuff.
Water weight's bloating, then gut health, systems working together, your brain communicating with your stomach.
Oh, yes, I was going back to, so if you deplete carbohydrates out of your system, your liver still needs glycogen to feed your brain. Because if you run out of liver glycogen, you're dead. Your brain's no longer getting so you need sugar for the brain, right?
Okay.
So, but your body will produce glucose through ketones. That's why people go to ketosis. So, like your body's got like a natural savior response. So you're never going to run out of liver glycogen because if you run out of liver glycogen, your brain stops getting messages and you're dead. So that's why you can have, and you don't need to eat carbohydrates to survive. You survive without them, no worries. But if your job is to do high intense exercise and perform well, then you need to have them around training, of course, as well. So it's interesting stuff. It's very complex though.
Yeah.
So you had a final question, did you?
Yeah, it was more about running with injuries and specific, like I always feel that my Achilles are rock hard and rock solid.
Yep.
Is there a correct technique or is every person different? Because you got heel strikers, toe strike. Like my mate Brownie, who's just an insane distance athlete, like Dean Brad.
He's a freak. He was at West Perth in a year.
Fucking freak, man. But he reckons you run on your toes and your cadence, like high cadence on your toes.
Yep.
Better, but that feels weird for me. It doesn't feel normal. It feels like I'm working harder to go like that.
Yeah. So look, there's definitely a more efficient running pattern. So everyone has their own sort of like normal gait, right? But there's definitely more efficient running patterns. And running like 4 foot to midfoot is where you want to be. you don't want to be running sort of like heel striking, landing your foot way out in front, because then you put like a bit of a braking. So if you're landing your foot way out in front, you put a braking force on. So, and then that requires a lot more energy to try and overcome that. You want to try and maintain momentum. So the foot landing under the body, so you can maintain your pace, is great. But yeah, your cadence, there's like an optimal cadence of around 180 steps per minute. But obviously, if you're short or tall, that's going to change. So it's not exactly that particular number. But running techniques is a funny one, because if you do it slowly, like there's some people out there with some terrible running. Have you seen those people running on the coast? You're like, how is this dude running? And like sometimes they'll run past you. You're like, how is this dude running past me right now? He's like feet are sprayed out to the side. But that's probably from years and years. His body's just adapted to that way of running. But there's definitely better ways to run, and having a more midfoot strike is going to be way more efficient.
My Achilles blow up, and I don't know if it's my shoes or it's my running style.
It's probably shoes, running style, and probably hip position as well. So like I was talking to an athlete at the footy club last night about, sort of like trying to reduce sort of hamstring strains. You want to get your hip into a better position. So if you've got this big anterior tilt or big dump in your hip where your hip bones are pointing down towards the ground more, your hamstrings are put on length. So they're put on stretch. So now they're working a lot more than they have to be at all certain times. And then that resonates down to the calf and down into the Achilles and into the plantar fascia. So people have plantar fascia, calf issues, Achilles issues. Generally, I would go straight to their hips and go, what is the hip doing when they're running? Can we get them into a better position? So you would try
this is all me.
Yeah. Try and strengthen anterior chain. So you want to try and encourage like a posterior tilt, like rib cage down. So the rib cage and pelvis position is very important. So if I'm standing up and I've got my hand on my chest and my hand on my hip, if my rib cage is tilting upwards, I now put myself into this anterior tilt. I'm trying to run. So now my hamstrings, calves, Achilles are now.
And will it be your scaps as well? Because I feel like my scaps fucking.
Well, if you so like purposely trying to retract them and get them into a certain position, you're probably exacerbating the issue. So for me, it's like to increase hamstring mobility and offload calves, you want to think about strengthening the anterior chain. So strengthening the abs.
Anterior means front.
Front. Loosen off your quads. Loosen your quads off, because obviously if they're tight, they pull on the pelvis and they pull the pelvis down into that anterior tilt. So you want to try and like mobilize hips, mobilize quads, and that will hopefully offload over time. It'll offload those areas.
So the consistency.
Building relation hips.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to definitely listen back to that bit again, because that hugely relates to me.
Do you have a recommended shoe that for your average punter?
Like
I hear so much conflicting.
Yeah, like look, barefoot running is great, but it's very dangerous if you're don't know what you're doing. So barefoot running is fantastic. Like your Vibram shoes, very minimal sole. You would progress those over a very long period of time.
What are they made by? Gingers?
That's
a very minimal sole.
Yeah, very minimal sole. I love South Park. And then but for your average day running, you definitely want to have a shoe that I have like 5 pairs of running shoes. I have my race day shoe. I've got like a high volume shoe which has thick padding. So when I do my long runs, I'm wearing the long padding because it's.
Would that be your zone 2s? Because
zone 2s. Like you're generally going for longer for your zone 2s because they're a little bit easier, so you can generally go longer. So zone 2s.
Yeah, my hockers that I got for the run are fucking.
Oh, they're like running on clouds, mate. You might as well strap pillows to your feet and run with pillows. That's how much that feels like, right?
Yeah. It's incredible.
If the goal is to keep running and you're not injured, you don't want to try and be more efficient. Wear a hocker because they're very slow, they're very comfortable. They're not going to give you that stress response in your ankles and your foot.
Okay, I might have to buy some. I bought $300 Nikes, man, and they're fucking killing my.
I can't stand. Well, Nikes they're not made for wide foot, so I can't wear Nikes at all because my foot's very wide and I get that crampy sort of feeling in the middle of my foot. So for me, like my favorite shoes at the moment is the New Balance, the Tempo. So the Brooks Hyperion Tempo. That's a great running shoe, really light. You want a light shoe as well on your foot. You don't want those heavy. I've bought heavy ones that are clunky, like they just don't feel good. So I race with the carbon fiber ones, and then on my long, slow runs, it's the thicker padding. And then on my short ones, I'll wear very minimal sole. So for my short, so I want to develop calf stiffness, tendon stiffness, which you get because if you run in a very soft heel, it encourages a heel strike. It wants you to put your heel down first. So that's the downside to those. But if you're not too concerned about how you run and you just want to get to the distance, then definitely running in a thick sole shoe was going to help, obviously, with breakdown and things like that as well. So
I can't help but feel like I'm turning into a dad if I wear Brooks on New Balance. So.
Mate, New Balance are the best though. I'm the same. For how they feel, I love them.
Everyone loves Nike because it's a good brand. Obviously, it's a very well-known brand. But if you have a wide foot, they don't really suit everyone with wide foot. So that's why New Balance that's why Brooks are good because I actually have a wide sole shoe, which is why I run in it. And I've worn the Vaporfly Nikes, and my feet just hurt the entire time.
Yeah, same.
And that's day one. day 2, I put on the Brooks, and I'm great. Like, no problems whatsoever.
So if anyone wants to buy a barely worn brand new pair of Nikes, it cost me $300. Hit me up.
And now $400.
I'll sell them to you for $100.
Yeah.
They're fucking. They're a good shoe. I've worn them about 15 times, I reckon.
Okay, cool. I do have to go, so that's it. But that's been a fucking awesome,
thanks, Mr. Green.
pretty informative podcast for a lot of people, I think. So
yeah, we touched on a few topics there.
I think we covered everything we sort of wanted to.
Everything,
and
I've now got like through apps.
Yeah, but I've got like another 10 things, so you can come on anytime, mate.
If you want, I've got like a immune support spreadsheet or PDF document I've just done. So if you want that, you can just email me, which we'll put in the show notes.
Yes.
Does it recommend the booster?
No.
Half of our audience just tuned out when you said that.
Just email me with Yarn Immunity. So Yarn Immunity, and I'll give you like this sort of immunity sort of template, which gives you some supplements and stuff you can sort of take.
Cool.
If you're an athlete taking supplements, make sure it's HACCP tested or Informed Sport tested. Don't take anything else.
Yeah. Oh, you won't be fucking playing sport.
Oh, you're playing. Yeah. So you are responsible for what goes into your body, no matter what anyone says. You are responsible. So if you want that, I'm happy to flick that through.
That's what Joseph tried telling Mary, but she blamed someone else.
All right. Thanks so much for coming on, Corey.
Cheers, brother.
Guys. Appreciate it.
All right.